So some disclaimers. I don't know what he meant by big tree. Anyway, first, I don't know anything about Mary Poppins. That's the second one. I don't know whether the last one was the best, because in old times, like Victorian times, etc., people take bad spoiled eggs and spoiled tomatoes to the meetings. They throw and they keep it. They don't know whether the next speaker will be better than the previous one. So they keep everything, and the last speaker gets all the other remaining stuff. So anyway. So this particular talk is about what do we mean by senior engineer. It can be engineer, it can be any other role, but basically what is meant by senior, right? Whether you can become senior if you are smart in doing your current job, whether you are technically capable of something, or whether if you are an accountant, whether you are technically good in accounting, etc., whether you can become senior, or whether you can become senior by passing some exams. Do you know everything to become a senior? So these are some of the questions, right? And by the way, this is called Sylvester cat. You guys know? Not Pamod Sylvester cat, right? So there are some images we generated, but then here Kanchana is also here, who is going to find bugs in pictures. So anyway, so let's start with that. So this is based on this particular paper. Sanjeev always send this particular article, blogs, what is on being a senior engineer. So we'll take stuff from there, right? So what are the senior behaviors, right? I'll talk in some dimensions. This might not be orthogonal, maybe 85 degree. But anyway, we'll go through one by one in each of these dimensions, talk about what is meant by senior. Okay, so first, the senior people love to get feedback. Right? So one of the difference between junior and the senior is juniors are very scared of getting feedback. But on the other hand, senior people are very open to get feedback. They go and seek for constructive criticism, seek for some feedback, especially when you think feedback is not needed. When you are confident that you have done everything perfect, that's where you will mostly make mistake. And senior people knows about that. So they go and actively seek for some feedback from the people. And then they don't get emotionally attached to the work. So when you're asking feedback, often people will be happy to give the feedback. But sometimes the junior people will get offended because they are attached themselves to the problem, versus the senior people do not attach themselves to the solution, right? They tend to get the feedback to the problem, not to the feedback to themselves. There's something called IKEA effect. How many of you have heard about IKEA effect? You guys know IKEA, right? Which is, US folks might know. In Sri Lankan terms, it's like Damro, right? You get assembling furniture, etc. So there was a study done in US. Every time somebody buys an IKEA furniture, they have a family problem after that. The reason being, generally the husband goes and assemble, right? And being a wife, they had to give feedback, obviously. And feedback has to be constructive criticism. We're saying this is crooked, right? So even though that's a constructive criticism, husband tend to hear it as, okay, you are an idiot. That's the feedback they get. So, right? Then they started fighting. So basically, the criticism is about the furniture, not about the husband, right? So being active and get that, right? And the expectation is not to know everything. The senior people knows that they don't know everything, obviously, and the feedback can come from even the junior people. They might know something on some particular area, and senior people are very happy to get that particular feedback. And obviously, they learn from the other people, etc. And understand and accept you will make mistakes, right? Often people, even the senior people might make mistakes. It can be some obvious problems, but still they tend to make mistakes, and it's normal. Human beings make mistakes, so it's normal, right? And then don't practice this cover your ass work, right? Don't point fingers. If there is something screwed up, totally fine, accept it, fix the problem, and then move it, right? Those are the senior behaviors. And then take ownership. Whatever the problems happen, take ownership and deal with that. And don't lie to yourself, right? Those are some of the critical aspects. Then the communication. So communications, again, the senior people tend to communicate with various other people. Often they deal with lots of problems. They have to deal with common problems. So when they communicate with other people, they need to have some empathy on what the meaning other people are saying. They have to listen, actively listen other people, understand what the other person is trying to tell based on their body languages, based on their verbal, other cues, and so on. And Samis often use this particular term, read between the lines. So sometimes people tell something without telling the actual problem. So you need to tend to understand what they really mean by reading between the lines. And you should be, the senior people shouldn't be aggressive or shouldn't be passive, but they have to be assertive. So there's a difference from assertive versus aggressive and passive. So they had to be assertive. So in a discussions, the assertiveness gives some authority. And often the senior people portray the authority, and they will be assertive, but they are not going to be aggressive, right? Aggressive will shut off other people, but on the other hand, assertiveness, etc., will encourage the discussions at the same time, kind of direct the discussions to the possible outcome. Again, the goal is not to win the argument, right? So sometimes the senior people might make mistakes. So we tend to fight. In WSO2, every meeting we tend to fight, right? But the objective is not to win the argument. It may not be me or you, but rather what's the best idea to get to, right? And Sanjay made a comment about irrational arguments. Sometimes you might end up with irrational arguments as well with some people, and you need to know when to stop it. Sometimes it might be easy to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. Because the objective is not to win the argument, but to solve the problem. And sometimes you might win the argument, but not to get good food for next 3 weeks. So. And the emotional intelligence is the other one. So sometimes people might show emotions. So sometimes some people might not talk in the meeting room, or they might make some comments. So it's not only the verbal stuff, but rather there are other emotions, etc., other body languages, etc., we have to capture and then have to understand. Okay, mentor others. So multiple people have talked about this. As a senior person, they mentor and lift the skills of people around them. And they often give constructive criticism. And as I mentioned previously, criticize the work, not the person. There is with the words people are using versus the way they are telling, some people might get offended because the way they will come out as they are criticizing the person, but the senior people understand that. They understand the body language, emotional intelligence, etc. So they adjust it, and they give constructive criticism on the task, but not on the person. And obviously, you have to treat others with respect and patience, and even when you are teaching something, there is some way to tell it, right? It is not to say like, okay, you are a stupid person, you don't know this, versus actually teaching them with care and confidence and care etc. So there's something called don't give fish, teach them how to fish. So when I start my career in MIT, this is WSO2 is my second job. I started my career in MIT. The very first lead, his advice was never touch the keyboard when you are helping somebody. Because if you touch the keyboard, the moment you touch the keyboard, you will go and do the work for them, right? But on the other hand, if you don't touch the keyboard, you are forced to teach them how to do the particular stuff. So if there is something, even if you are debugging something, if you never touch the keyboard, you have to give instruction, and most probably the other person will ask why you are giving these instructions. So in a way, in that particular process, you will start teaching all the skills to the other people during that particular process. And then define, when you are mentoring some people, define the destinations, not the path, because the path you might take and the path the other person might take is completely different. They will somehow find the path. You can help them on finding the correct path. As far as you define them, the destination, they will somehow find the problem. And trust the people, trust your juniors or trust other people. Again, people are very good people, right? Trust them, just you have to mentor them. And also challenge them. Sometimes, mentoring doesn't mean like you can't challenge them when they come up with some answers or something else, or even in the discussions. We often challenge the people, right? That is also part of mentoring. Because when you challenge the people, they tend to understand more about why we are challenging, on what basis we are challenging. And let them to challenge you back. Again, as I mentioned previously, the objective is not to win the argument or not to win the discussions, etc. Right? The objective is to find the proper answer. So you challenge and let the people to challenge them. And dealing fussiness, right? This is, again, like Srinath previously mentioned about multiple stuff, like when you are talking about orthogonal design versus crawl, walk, and run. Again, it's a fussiness. You have to always deal with trade-offs, and there are lots of trade-offs and assumptions to deal with, right? So the senior people are able to handle all this fussiness. Like in meetings, we tend to ask, what's the estimate? And junior people I tend to say like, okay, we haven't designed it yet. We don't know whether it is going to take. In most cases, our questions are like whether it is going to get weeks or months or years. And sometimes the junior people struggle even to answer that particular questions, right? They are a bit scared to take some guesstimate dealing the fussiness. But if it's a senior person, they make some assumptions, tell these other assumptions, and then come up with some timelines to answer so that we can continue the discussion. So as senior you will end up dealing with lots of fussiness, and you have to expect to deal with the fussiness, right? And the change is constant. Again, we might ask for something, they might give an estimate, they might start working on it, and the next week we come and say, okay, change of plan, now we have to do something else. That's common, deal with it, and those are all part of the fussiness. Okay, so your own work. Now, like senior people are expected to provide leadership or provide mentoring other people, etc. But again, they also have to do their own work as well, right? But unfortunately, unlike the junior people, senior people are not going to get a to-do list, right? So being junior might be a bit more easy because you get a to-do list, whether you like it or not. But in the case of senior people, in most cases, you will not get a to-do list, right? So you have to build your own to-do list. You need to know what to be done. And you have to go above and beyond. And you have to understand that not all tasks are interesting or rock star quality tasks, right? Sometimes you need to do some menial task And in most of the cases, the senior people, when they divide the work, etc., they give all the rock star related work to junior people. So that's kind of motivate them and mentoring them. But on the other hand, they might get very tedious or very boring task, but that is normal, right? Again, that is expected. And do your work because you believe so, not because someone has asked to, right? Multiple people have mentioned it previously too, because we believe on the task, believe on the outcome, and that's why we do the task. That's why the senior people do the task, not because somebody else have asked to, right? And don't worry about who gets the credit, right? The objective is to solve the problem, not to get the credit, not to win the argument. So don't worry about who is getting the credit. If somebody else is getting the credit, that's great. You just solve the problem. And don't try to impress others, right? Don't try do the work to impress the others. Again, that is not the quality or that is not the behavior of the senior people. You shouldn't do the work to impress the others. And then we use this particular quote often, don't ask for permissions, ask for forgiveness. That again, like you need to take your own initiatives and within the defined boundaries, within the defined framework, within the defined principles. And if it's screwed up, that's totally fine. Just ask for forgiveness, but no need to ask for permissions, etc. Right? By the way, one of our guys came and said he has gone and completely screwed up something and said, you told me don't ask for permission, ask for forgiveness, etc. Again, dealing with fussiness, right? Deal with the fussiness. That's why I said, like, define the principles. So there are some core first principles, etc. You can't violate them, right? Core principles and etc. So, okay, teamwork. Aware about the jerk behavior, right? And I know the importance of the teamwork. So a person can be technically brilliant, but they might be impossible to work with other people. And that person will be a failure, at least in WSO2, and most other companies too, right? So know the behavior, the jerk behavior when you are dealing with other people. In Apache Software Foundation, there's something called community over code, right? So the theory behind that is, if there is a code base which sucks, but there's a good community, the project will be successful because the community will work around, they will go and fix the code, they will work with all other customers or users, and the project will be successful. But on the other hand, if you have the community which sucks, code is brilliant, anyhow that project will die off after some time because the community will not help anybody. They will not have any new features and so on. So it's always community over code in Apache Software Foundation. WSO2 came from Apache Software Foundation's backgrounds. So it's always community over code, favoring the teamworks rather than the technical matters. And the performance is not only about the individual performance, right? I mean, the person can be technically brilliant, as I mentioned, their performance might be brilliant, but when we are evaluating the success of the company, it's the company success. So if you are evaluating the success of the product, it's the product success. So we can say one person, I am brilliant, I have done all my features, but your colleagues haven't finished your features, still a failure, right? You are among the failure group, even you have done your job. So teamwork is more important in the case of senior behaviors. And meritocracy, again, in WSO2 as well as in most other companies, including Apache, etc., respect is earned, not given. It's not given based on your title. It's not given based on your experience, etc. Respect is given based on your knowledge, your authority, your contributions. Basically, it's called meritocracy. So the authority comes from the knowledge, right? Knowledge comes from your senior behavior and your expertise on the area, as well as the leadership you can provide. So that's how you will get the respect. So the senior people understand that. And leadership. Leadership is again nothing to do with the title. Yes, we do have some title called associate technical lead, and whoever having a lead title expected to have the leadership. But the leadership can come from even the junior people, etc. Right? The leadership is kind of how do you influence the other people? How do you motivate the other people? How do you persuade the other people? How much of influence you have over the other one in order to get a greater good, right? For example, if you take Mahatma Gandhi, for example, doesn't have any title, doesn't have any authority, etc., but he was one of the greatest leaders in history, right? Doesn't have any given authority. What he had was meritocracy, right? And you have to gradually increase your sphere of influence. Again, there is a concept called sphere of influence. People tend to stay within the comfort zone. The more you go out of your comfort zone, your sphere of influence will increase, right? That new zone will become your comfort zone, and your sphere of influence will increase. So again, you take the initiative and you go there, right? And leadership is like parenting, right? Like Srinath used to tell, best feedback a father can get is he was tough, but he was fair, right? So same applicable for leadership, right? He was tough, but he was fair. Tough because he was pushing you hard, pushing the junior people or the other people hard to go out of the comfort zone, give proper feedback, give hard feedback. Again, like take parenting, right? You give a feedback to your child. I used to say beat your child, but then somebody said we shouldn't beat the child. Anyway, give feedback to your child because you love the person, right? That's how the leadership works. You give hard feedback to the people in order to fix them, in order to improve them, and that's the only way it will work out. Right? And do actions with honest feeling and help the people. Right? Again, if you love the person, you will not fear to give bad feedback. Again, the intention is to not to demotivate them. Intention is to help them build. So you will tend to give good feedback. And leadership is contagious. There's something called monkey see, monkey do, right? So we see what Sanjeev has done. That's how most of us build our leadership. So again, it's a contagious. What you do, your juniors will see. They will tend to do. They might invent something new as well. So that's how it goes, kind of a viral nature. Okay, so what you should do. If you are a junior or if you don't have the senior behaviors, first of all, you have to move away from a follower and looking for your to-do. Obviously, find your own to-do. Try to lead the path and look for possibilities, look for opportunities, and then jump and take the opportunities, widen your sphere of influence, go beyond defined boundaries and explore, right? Every time you get an opportunity, just jump in. And then provide vision and define strategy. So WSO2 has lots of spaces. All our mailing lists are all open. You can jump in and participate in any of the discussions. Can be on any of the strategy list or architecture list or etc. You can jump in and contribute and part of the strategy and earn leadership and earn respect during that particular process. Okay? And when you hit with the problem, do not complain or do not come up with excuses, but try to find what's the root cause of the problem, tend to fix it, see how we can solve that particular problem. And again, the ownership comes into the picture. When you see a problem, don't just tend to ignore it. You tend to work with that particular problem and fix the problem, right? You own the problem and go and fix the problem, right? By the way, when you are trying to find the root cause problem, in that process, you will start learning new stuff as well, right? Those are the opportunities to learn new technology or learn new skills, etc. Because in order to solve that particular problem, you need to identify some of the new technologies or new skills or other, whatnot. And in the process, you will learn some new skills too. Okay, once you understand the problem, explore the alternative means, etc. Basically, that's again how to solve the problem. There might be multiple problems or multiple ways of solving it. Again, these are fussiness. You have to understand what are the other attributes or parameters you have to worry about. One or the other. These are trade-off. And evaluate the trade-off, discuss with other people, and then do that. So basically, in a short takeaway, when you find a problem, don't ignore it, own it, and try to participate, try to learn in the process, discuss with other people, and build your leadership and senior skills in the process. Thanks. That's all from me.